Hey sailors, I'm the girl with the lighthouse tattoo, and today I'm going to talk about the worst day of my life. One year ago today was the worst day of my life, and it's a tough one to talk about, but it's funny because I'm so much more comfortable talking about it now than I was before, just because it was literally a traumatic situation for me. So I was dealing with some PTSD and going through therapy and figuring all that stuff out. But even after all this time, even after all this work, it's really hard to talk about. So I'm probably going to keep this video fairly short, but it is sort of a long story, so buckle in. So my ex-fiance and I were having an argument. We had gotten engaged on January 1st, 2020, so I bet you can guess just how doomed that relationship was. That's another story. We had been engaged for about 7 months at this point. I had already tried to break it off multiple times. Things weren't really working, and it wasn't happening. But my partner at the time was not really willing to accept that things were over. So we get into this argument, and it's the most irrelevant, most nonsense argument ever. Like, this is the hilarious part, and I implore you, please laugh, because otherwise I am sharing my pain for nothing. We got into an argument about the Queen. Yes, the Queen of England. And the specifics of that argument were, what are the powers of Queen Elizabeth II in Canada? Does she have the right to veto a Canadian law if she wanted to? Is she going to? No. Can she? Absolutely. She does have that power in Canada, and that's never happened, but I know it's possible. And so I said this to my ex, and he did not accept that. It turned into a very large argument, and it's interesting what like a fragile ego will do when confronted with being wrong. So I go to Wikipedia, as often happens when there's an argument these days. Let's go to the internet and see what it says, right? So on Wikipedia, it very clearly states that I am correct. My ex does not handle this well. He goes into the bathroom, locks himself in. It becomes this whole ordeal. And through the bathroom wall, he's yelling all sorts of crazy things at me. I'm yelling back. It's an argument. Crazy things happen and are said. And in that moment, I found myself excessively frustrated. At this point, I probably tried to break up with my ex-fiance at least 100 times at this point. And that's not an exaggeration. That is a literal, I tried to break up with him. He attempted to convince me otherwise with suicide threats or self-harming or all sorts of other really painful things to talk about. So, I laugh because I'm uncomfortable. I've always been this type of person where I giggle to fill the silence to try to make things less awkward for myself, because I've been through a lot of awkward situations, and talking about the person who derailed my life is really difficult. I really love this man. I mean, he wouldn't have been my fiance at one point in time if I didn't care about him. But it is really hard to think about, and it's just the reality of the situation, unfortunately. So at this point, let's jump back into the fight. We are arguing through a wall. I'm sick of it. I just want the relationship to be over for the last time, for the 100th, 1000th, whatever time. I'm over it. So I say, at this point, I would rather kill myself than be in a relationship with you. Simple as that. I would rather end my life than to be in a relationship with someone who behaves the way that he behaved on a regular basis. So suddenly I hear him on the other side of the bathroom wall or door, on the other side of the door, calling 911 and accusing me of threatening to kill him. Now here comes the point where I get upset. Because here's the thing, I did not ever threaten to kill anyone. Certainly least of all him. I'm a very internally abusing, self-harming type of person. I could show you plenty scars. Again, that's a video for another time. But point being, that was never something that came out of my mouth. And so, unfortunately, this was not the first time that cops were involved in our relationship. The previous time, I had called police because he had punched me, and I had like a black eye at the time. Very obvious. It wasn't actually a punch. It was my face into a chair. Neither here nor there. I was injured in the eye area due to my ex, and so I called cops. And unbeknownst to me, he went outside of the house, sat in front, waited for the cops, also called, and then made up a whole story. So when they came in, they were like, "Show us your phone right now." And I was like, "What? My phone? What are you talking about? Like, don't you care about the fact that my eye is bruised? Like, I called you guys for help here. What is happening?" So I was treated like the perpetrator at this point. I have guns pointed at me, and I'm being told, "Show us your phone or you're getting arrested right now." So I just dropped my phone on the ground and put my arms out. And at that point, I got arrested with a black eye because my ex had went outside and talked to the cops first. I don't know what he said, but at that point, I lost. You know, regardless of the fact that I was the victim in that situation, I was never heard. No one ever asked me, "Hey, why did you call the police? Why do you have a black eye?" No one ever asked. Thank you, North Vancouver RCMP. Shout out. So this more recent time, I knew cops are not to be trusted. So I tried to play the same game as my ex played. So I said, okay, he's calling the cops and making up a complete lie about me. That's fine. I'll go sit outside in the same spot, sat on top of my car with my arms folded, just like ready for them, waiting, just to explain the situation of like, hey, we had an argument about the Queen's powers in Canada. We never actually threatened each other. I just said that I don't want to be in a relationship with this man and I'd rather kill myself than to be with him. Simple. That was the story. And so I just wanted to clear it up, explain it to them, move on with my life. And that's not what happened, because when North Vancouver RCMP showed up, I had 3 officers and 2 different cop cars with cops pointed their guns at me. "Get on the ground right now, right now." Cops love to yell at me, like just scream shit at me when I have been victimized. This is not the first time. It's not going to be the last time. I don't know why they raise their voices, and I know if you just kind of sneeze the wrong way, if you make any sort of inclination the wrong way, they're going to make all sorts of assumptions about you, but they can yell at you, and you're expected to remain completely calm. And I tried my best, but being yelled at makes me cry because I have PTSD, so I start crying. And I try to explain to them the situation of what's happening with my hands in the air to explain. They ask me if I have a weapon. I explain, no, I don't have a weapon. You can probably see I'm getting agitated. I'm starting to shake a little bit because the story is starting to get to a tough part of my memory. A very difficult day it was. So at this point, they don't really listen to anything that I'm saying. And they don't hear the fact that I never threatened the guy. He accused me of this, but I never did anything. At some point later on in the day, I am informed that apparently he told them that I had a knife and that I was chasing after him with this knife. But when he couldn't produce it or explain what it looked like or anything, the cops still believed him for some reason. And the part that gets me, that is super, super interesting to me, and I just want to understand why the RCMP functions this way. My ex-fiance had like basically a mental break in the middle of trying to give his statement to the police, and he ran away into the woods and hid in the woods for 2 hours until the cops were gone. So you're telling me a man that is crazy enough to not even be able to carry on a conversation with police and runs into the woods and just hides in the woods for hours, that's a person who you should believe over the person crying. Yeah, I get it. I shouldn't show any emotion to police, but it's really upsetting to be arrested for something you have not even said, let alone done. It makes me furious. More so than my very mentally ill ex-fiance, I am angry to this day at North Vancouver RCMP, and my own therapist has told me never to call them again, and she works for them. So you know cops like help people with therapy sometimes. She's one of those therapists, and she's told me that she does not recommend me to ever call them for help. because they don't help. They have never helped me. They didn't help me when I was a child, when I got. They didn't help me when my family's house got robbed when I was little. They didn't help us in any situation. But how about the man who pepper sprayed my dad and then pepper sprayed 2 cops? Do you think they ever found him? I don't want this to get turned around into a rant about police, but it's tough not to stir up feelings about police when the worst day of my life was because of them. So they believed the mentally ill man who accused me with complete lies. And that's fine. Okay, you believe him. I sit there, I talk to my lawyer, I figure it all out, try to figure something. Obviously, I just use a duty counsel lawyer because I'm not going to spend a bunch of money trying to prove that I haven't said something that I clearly haven't said. It's just not worth it to waste money on something that is unprovable because it didn't happen. It's completely ridiculous. So I just talked to the random guy. He says, don't tell them anything. Standard shit you see on TV. I was an idiot and I opened my mouth and I told them, this is exactly the situation as it happened. This is what my perspective, basically. I dump it all out, explain everything clearly, and they keep me in jail for 18 and a half hours. I don't know what I did, but I had antibiotics that I was supposed to take at the time, and they wouldn't let me take them with me. "18 hours in a jail cell without my glasses because they take that shit away from you. And right now I'm not wearing glasses, partially because I don't want to see too clearly and think too hard. I just want to focus on the story rather than whatever I'm seeing because, you know, ADHD. But man, I'm getting like really tense. I can feel it in myself and it's really hard to just like keep calm, stay on topic, get to the points. But I'm trying my best. So at this point, I'm in the jail cell. They've taken all of my belongings, including my glasses, which are very important to me under most circumstances. And I'm just stuck there with nothing to do. And I have anxiety, like building and building and building. I'm just in this tiny cell, completely alone, no one to talk to, nothing to do. Like if I had something to draw, if I had a book, anything. It would be so much easier than sitting in a cell thinking, I didn't say that. Why am I here? I didn't say that. Why am I here? I didn't even say that. Why is saying something even going to put you in a jail, let alone the fact that I didn't say that? Why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I here? And throughout this process, and as the anxiety builds, so does a lot of discomfort in my body. So I can't use the bathroom at all. It stops working. There's nothing functioning in my body at this point. I can't eat. I can't drink. You know, there's a little shitty sink on top of the toilet that is like attached all together. And that whole mess is just too disgusting to me. I just can't process it in my head. And there's nothing worthwhile for me to want to drink water or use the bathroom or anything. For those 18 and a half hours, my body shut down, was like, nope. They brought me like a muffin and I tried to shove a few little crumbs in my mouth. I tried to sip a little bit of something. Nothing would go down. I just couldn't do it. Luckily, the guard who was there during the evening was kind and he brought me a book because he could see that I was just losing it, going around in circles, trying to like calm myself, trying to find some way to like be tired enough to maybe sleep at some point. And at this point, he was a really kind guy and brought me like 4 books to choose between. And I picked the Stephen King novel and started reading. And it really helped a lot. But once it got later and later into the evening, into the night, middle of the night at some point, the guards change over. And at this point, everything changes. So as it's later and later into the evening, I start realizing that there's no way I'm falling asleep. It's just not happening. I'm not going to be able to fall asleep. So I try to calm myself, but the tears keep coming. I'm just stressed. I'm losing it. I'm exhausted. And so at this point, the replacement guard, demented as he was, he decides to turn up the lights even higher and make it even more difficult for me to sleep and to come by and to laugh at me, literally cackling, laughing. Like oh, do you think that I'm here to serve you and to make your life easier? Just weird, twisted, sarcastic behavior that was just not something I had ever experienced before. He was literally treating me like an animal. And I've never been treated like that in my entire life before, so I couldn't handle it. It was a lot for me. I probably should have made a complaint about that guard. Maybe one day I will find the courage, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's worth even complaining about anything to do with the RCMP, but because they don't care about me as a human being. And that's been proven on 1,000 different cases. And I don't just mean criminal cases or whatever. It's just so many different situations in my life have shown me that my life just simply has less value than others. In this country, I don't matter as much. And it's funny because the other day I was watching Big Brother 23, and one of the people on that show is half Indian and half South African. And she was talking about how she wanted to be called by her last name. And to me, I was like, oh, what a beautiful call to your heritage. And in my head, I'm like, how can you say that when you don't even go by your first name? Most of my friends don't know what my real name is. I changed my name when I was 12, after I tried to kill myself because life was just too difficult. It's a lot, and again, not for this video. I'm just proud of myself. I haven't started crying at this point. I've gotten through the horrific guard. I mean, that guard gave me PTSD, and I had to spend some serious time with my therapist. Sorry, the camera cut off, but yeah, I had to go through therapy and really deal with the PTSD that I got from that guard. And, you know, breathing exercises, different scenarios, different perspectives, considering why that happened. Was it because of me personally? No, that guy didn't know me. He couldn't have done that intentionally just for the sake of being a shitty person or just because he thought I was a bad person or anything. It was whatever had brought him to that point. So that's not something that I can waste my energy on, but all I know is that that guard affected me deeply, and he probably will always live in my heart somewhere deep down in a pit of hate where I'll never forgive him. And you know, I probably should have complained, you know, made like a formal complaint about my treatment during that time, because I don't think that being treated like an animal is necessary. Especially when you're there for one night with absolutely zero evidence at all. They're just assuming that you're guilty and treating you like a horrible criminal, but even a criminal doesn't deserve to be treated like an animal. Even animals don't deserve to be treated that way. Nobody does. It's not right. It's ridiculous. The whole system is a joke, but that's, again, neither here nor there. I probably should have written notes for this video. You know, this was a tough one for me, and I should have kept something to keep me on track. But at the end of the day, I just wanted this to be like an accurate representation of what it makes me feel rather than it being something scripted or whatever. At the end of the day, I survived the most difficult experience in my life, and that was the person that I trusted more than anyone, the person that I was going to marry, my fiance. He lied to the police in order to have me arrested because we had an argument about the Queen. A dumb, useless, nonsense, worthless argument turned into the person that I trusted most in the world, putting me into a position where I lost my freedom. So yeah, that's something I'll probably never forget. And definitely the worst day of my life. But 1 year later, I survived. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully next time I will have a much more fun and exciting video for you. But if you check this one out, then I really appreciate it. And if you want to share this story with other people, then make sure you hit that like button so that other people can see it. You know how the algorithm works. We gotta feed it. Nom, nom, nom.